Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. In two breaking news stories today, Tucker Carlson left Fox News and Don Lemon was fired from CNN. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg eventually gave up on his legal battle with the House Judiciary Committee and he compromised. He originally wanted to force Republicans to stop the deposition of Mark Pomerantz by filing a lawsuit 2 years ago after the New York Post first reported about Hunter Biden's infamous laptop. More than 50 former intelligence officials joined a petition. They claimed that Hunter's laptop was fake news from Russia. The letter thoroughly influenced the outcome of that year's election. So what is the background behind this political maneuver? Bed Bath & Beyond filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It's going to happen sooner or later. It probably won't be the last chain store to declare bankruptcy either. While everyone is predicting when Governor DeSantis will announce his presidential candidacy, he is now about to embark on a multi-country tour. So will this tour be a part of his election campaign? The persistent protest of California's small landlords against the government's ban on evictions has finally come to fruition. When the FBI questioned and searched for attendees of the January 6th rally, an FBI agent made a choice based on his own conscience. It certainly wasn't an easy decision, and it also cost him dearly, but now he has resigned, which gives him the freedom to tell the truth. Okay, let's get into it. Fox News on Monday confirmed that it parted ways with popular primetime host Tucker Carlson effective immediately without offering an explanation why. The news channel announced that Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. Carlson's last show was on Friday, April 21st. It means that Carlson will not have the opportunity to host a final Fox News show and to bid his viewers farewell. And Elon Musk's response to the news today on Twitter was, "We live in the most interesting of times." Indeed. There is much speculation about what Tucker Carlson will do next. Will Tucker join other media such as the Epoch Times or Newsmax? Or will Tucker inevitably end up in the White House with President Trump? After it was announced that Tucker Carlson would be leaving the network, Fox Corporation stock dropped about 4% by midday trading. The decision to part ways with Tucker came less than a week after Fox and Dominion Voting Systems reached a $787 million settlement, although Tucker's show was not a main focus of Dominion's lawsuit. Tucker's departure comes just 3 days after Dan Bongino left Fox. And on the flip side, Don Lemon was fired from CNN today. Lemon suggested that the move was unexpected. He was the host of CNN's This Morning show. His firing came about 1 hour after Fox News issued the news release saying that Fox News had just parted ways with Tucker Carlson. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has dropped his attempt to block a congressional subpoena that was issued to a former prosecutor who worked in his office. The House Judiciary Committee tweeted, "Bragg caved, Jim Jordan won." The development concluded a legal battle between Bragg and House Judiciary Republicans. Bragg attempted to stop lawmakers from requesting testimony from Mark Pomerantz, who was a former prosecutor and who investigated President Trump's finances. Late in March, Bragg urged a grand jury to indict President Trump. This prompted Jordan to initiate a probe into what he called a politically motivated prosecution against President Trump. Jordan subpoenaed Pomerantz for testimony in that probe. Consequently, Bragg sued the House Judiciary Committee in an attempt to prevent the ex-prosecutor Mark Pomerantz from testifying. Following that lawsuit, the Southern District Court of New York held a hearing on April 19th, and District Judge Mary Kay Viscochel ruled that the congressional panel had the authority to become involved in President Trump's investigation. Viscochel declined Bragg's request for an injunction against the congressional subpoena of Pomerantz. In response, Bragg announced that he would appeal the decision on April 19th. Accordingly, the court issued a temporary administrative hold on the subpoena on the same day. And finally, on April 21st, Bragg dropped the appeal. So Mark Pomerantz's deposition will proceed on May 12th. 2 years ago, in October of 2020, the former acting CIA Director Mike Morrell organized 50 colleagues to sign a letter that falsely claimed that emails from Hunter Biden's laptop that were published in the New York Post were Russian disinformation. Now, in private sworn testimony, Morrell told the House Judiciary Committee that after the New York Post published the Hunter Biden laptop story, Morrell was contacted by Antony Blinken. The current Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who was then a senior campaign official on Biden's team, called Morrell and asked him to help Biden. Morrell told House investigators that he had no intention of writing any statement exonerating Biden before Blinken's phone call, but the call with Blinken triggered that intent. On the same night as the phone call, Blinken emailed Morrell an article from USA Today. Blinken claimed that the FBI was investigating whether Hunter's laptop was part of a disinformation campaign. Morrell did a little bit of his own research based on the USA Today story. Then Morrell contacted Mark Polymeropoulos, who is a retired senior CIA operations officer, for assistance in compiling the letter. The letter discredited the story that was reported by the New York Post. Over the next 2 days, Morrell collected the signatures of 51 former intelligence officials, including 4 former CIA directors. John Brennan was one of the former CIA directors who signed the letter. Morrell sent an email telling Nick Shapiro, who was the former deputy chief of staff to Brennan, that the Biden campaign wanted the statement to go to a particular reporter at the Washington Post. In the end, Shapiro took the letter to Politico, which published it on October 19th under the headline, "Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation, dozens of former officials say." During the pre-election debate with President Trump on October 22nd, 2020, Biden cited the letter to deflect accusations against his family. After the debate, Morrell received a call from Steve Ricchetti, the chair of the Biden campaign, to thank Morrell for writing the statement. Morrell said, "Steve thanked me for putting the statement out." The thank you call with Ricchetti was organized by fellow signatory Jeremy Bash. Bash was Morrell's former colleague at Beacon Global Strategies. Bash was later appointed by Biden to a prestigious role on his president's intelligence advisory board. Morrell, on the other hand, did not become CIA director, and many media personalities followed suit, and they claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. Many publications did not confirm the content of the laptop until over a year later. Even though some media have verified that the laptop is authentic, they refuse to acknowledge that Biden may be implicated in the wrongdoing that is found on the abandoned laptop. 2 years ago, after the laptop story was published, a poll found that 79% of people who have been following reports about Hunter Biden's laptop said that truthful media coverage of the story would have changed the outcome of the 2020 election. And in another update about Hunter Biden, the House Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer, said that the number of the Biden family members who are involved would jump from 9 to at least 12. While Comer's team is still reviewing bank records of Hunter Biden's foreign deals, he said in an interview with Maria Bartiromo that there are many more LLCs, there are many more Biden members, and many more countries that were involved. The congressman even suggested that Biden family members may have broken the law by acting as foreign agents without registering as lobbyists. He also emphasized that eventually the probe leads back to Joe Biden because his relatives did not have the power to favor foreign entities or governments. Years of losses and a failed turnaround plan have left the once strong Bed Bath & Beyond cash-strapped. The company announced that it had filed for bankruptcy protection on Sunday. Rumors that Bed Bath & Beyond might go bankrupt have been circulating for months. Last year, Bed Bath & Beyond closed a number of stores at an alarming rate. In February, the company announced plans to close stores in 150 locations. A year ago, it said that the company was closing 87 stores. But these actions have not been enough to prevent the fate of the bankruptcy filing. In recent weeks, the company's stock price has fallen below $1. 360 Bed Bath & Beyond stores and 120 buybuy BABY stores and websites will remain open, and they will continue serving customers as it begins efforts to effect closure of its retail locations. Recently, an increasing number of retail chains have sought court protection. Sears and Toys R Us, for example, have closed most of their stores, while Circuit City and Linen & Things have disappeared altogether. David's Bridal, which was the largest bridal retailer in the U.S., recently filed for bankruptcy. They said that it would close all of its stores if a buyer could not be found quickly. This is the second time in less than 5 years that the chain has filed for bankruptcy. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced that he will be visiting Japan, South Korea, Israel, and the United Kingdom in order to promote economic ties between Florida and foreign countries. The trip has cast uncertainty over speculation that he's preparing to run for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. The multi-country visit will, of course, further raise DeSantis' profile and allow him to highlight Florida's economy on a larger scale. DeSantis is traveling with his wife, along with Florida Secretary of State Cord Byrd and Florida Secretary of Commerce Laura DeBella. They met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida today, and they will meet with South Korean Prime Minister Han Dae-soo and with British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, among others. It remains to be seen if DeSantis' international trip is simply an attempt to bring international business to Florida, or if he hopes that the trip will serve as a springboard for the 2024 campaign. At the beginning of the epidemic, shortly after the eviction moratorium was introduced in Oakland, California, many tenants abused the policy by refusing to pay rent. They stayed in their rental homes for free for years. This is added to the burden of landlords who have to bear the huge cost of mortgages, land taxes, and maintenance. And they even risk foreclosure on their homes. Jane Gao, a Chinese-American landlord, said this policy is more communist than communism, and it is simply unacceptable. You have to pay to buy something. You have to pay to rent a house. But not now. Tenants don't even pay if they have a job. Jane Gao's tenant refused to pay rent after the government issued an eviction ban. She has accumulated nearly $100,000 in unpaid rent. Mr. Zhao, who is a Chinese-American landlord, has a similar situation as Jane Gao. He said that he is owed more than $50,000 in rent by the tenant. Mr. Zhao's tenant has lived in the house for over 10 years, and the rent is $700 per month. The landlord also pays for his utilities and garbage. In all these years, Mr. Zhao has not raised his rent by a penny. He rented to the tenant because of sympathy for the tenant. Before the epidemic, the tenant had been paying rent. But since September of 2020, they don't pay any rent, not a single penny. Therefore, the landlords came to Oakland City Hall several times to protest and to demand that the government ends the ban and they compensate the landlords. At the Oakland City Council meeting on April 11th, council members introduced legislation to phase out the ban with a transition period from May to August and to fully stop the ban on evictions on September 1st. But this has caused strong dissatisfaction among small landlords who think that the transition period is too long, and they expect the city council members to vote to end the eviction ban immediately. On the afternoon of April 18th, multi-ethnic landlords gathered again in front of Oakland City Hall to protest. They swarmed the city council in order to raise signs and to speak actively to put pressure on the government. Members of the East Bay Rental Housing Association, along with In It Together and the Coalition for Secure Housing, all came to protest. After several hours of meetings, the Oakland City Council voted 7-1 to end the ban on July 15th. So some small landlords said that they were slightly relieved that everyone's fight had finally come to an end. Former FBI agent Stephen Friend, who refused to raid a January 6 suspect, warns of the agency's weaponization. But why would he not want to hunt down and jail the rioters who supposedly killed police officers at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021? The justification for hunting them down was troubling to him when an FBI superior asked Friend on August 23, 2022. Friend explained, "I responded back that no police officers were killed by any of the individuals who were charged with the violence at the Capitol on January 6. When Friend was transferred from Iowa to the FBI in Florida, he complained about what he saw as heavy-handed tactics being planned against January 6 suspects in Florida. While he sat with an FBI assistant special agent in charge, Friend learned about the FBI's plan to use a tactical team to arrest an alleged January 6 suspect. The arrestee in question had already been in contact with the FBI. FBI agents interviewed him, yet plans were set to go for his arrest. That kind of force against a non-violent subject raised constitutional issues in Friend's mind, so he had to correct some of the misinformation that was used to justify those tactics. But later, Friend was told that he was a bad team member and that he should not report for work the next day. Then, he was counted as absent without leave. His security clearance was suspended shortly afterwards, and on September 19, 2022, he was suspended from his job. His income dropped to zero. He was not allowed to seek employment elsewhere. Yet, the use of force objection was just the tip of Friend's concerns with the FBI. Primarily, when he moved to Florida to work on human trafficking investigations, he was reassigned from that role to the Joint Terrorism Task Force to investigate and hunt down January 6 suspects. To him, the FBI was not following its usual case management procedures in this case. He believes that he was employed to create the illusion that domestic terrorism is a much more serious issue than it is. Friend said, "They've chosen to open hundreds of cases and then spread them around the country. That gives the impression that domestic terrorism is a nationwide threat when really the numbers that the FBI is touting stem from one incident on one day. That's a problem for the country." He added the FBI is supposed to stand for law and order, but instead we're raising the temperature. Friend also said that he also kept politics out of his police work, but in early 2023, Washington politics looked for him. He was invited to interview with the House Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government in February of 2023. So he resigned from the Bureau the day of his testimony. This made him free to speak about his concerns before Congress. He said that the GOP majority allowed him to present his story and to air his concerns about the FBI. In contrast, the Democrat minority accused him. The Democrats generated a 300-page report, and they leaked cherry-picked sections to friendly media. The report accused Friend and others of promoting conspiracy theories rather than proof. Friend also wrote his story in a forthcoming book that is called True Blue: My Journey from Beat Cop to Suspended FBI Whistleblower. The book will be published in July. The FBI, however, expressed serious concerns about Friend's book. In an emailed letter to Friend on April 21st, the FBI asked for redactions of 36 pages of the book, but Friend said that he has no plans to redact his book. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. We've also heard from many of our viewers that they don't get notifications of our videos anymore from YouTube, so please follow us on Telegram, Gab, Getter, and on True Social and Ganjing World for the latest updates. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.